All right, man. Yeah, I mean it's a fun thing. Truly do enjoy doing this. I don't even know how many we've done so far in the last what's today, the 15th, 16th, something like that. And I think we already have like 8 to 10 recorded. None of them are released yet because I'm still waiting on a couple things. So those first couple days are going to be bananas. But today we have John Balkam hanging out with me, owner of the Third Win Group, current employee of Substack, and is the author of 3 Win Sponsorship. John, how's it going today, man?
It's going great, Michael. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for asking me. No one, no, everyone asks me.
Think about the host.
And that's fine. I don't really, I don't want to be considered a host. I just want to be the guy who's in all these conversations. I don't like calling them interviews either because I don't want to make it seem like I'm interrogating you in any way. I just want to have a conversation about what you do. I mean, we had one once. Oh, awesome. So we left the bar. Whatever bar we were at, it was awesome. Had a couple drinks. John and I hung out. We shared some cool ideas, some cool stories. I then go to Penn Station, and again shared a couple drinks. So I was a little bit nicer than in most situations. So some kid walks up. He's like, "Hey, I'm selling cookies for my basketball team to so we can buy uniforms." I don't believe him anymore, but I bought a pack of cookies. It was like $3 or whatever. I needed change, so he gives me change. And one of his friends comes around and literally just swipes the change right out of my hand and runs away. It was like $15. I was like, "Are you kidding?" And they both ran away. He dropped his cookies, so I took them. But you'll always be forever attached to the one time I was robbed in Penn Station. So thanks for hanging out with me today, John. I appreciate it.
Of course.
No reaction to the story at all. You're practically the reason why I got robbed. But all right, cool. So let's talk about you a little bit. First question I want to ask people is, where does your love of sports come from?
Man, as far back as I can remember, Michael, I was obsessed with sports. I was the kind of kid growing up watching Sports Center 2 or 3 times a day, right? But on top of that, I come from a family of 4 boys, so I'm the youngest. And naturally, sports and athletics were something that were a common thread throughout childhood. My dad is a huge sports fan. We grew up in the Washington D.C. Metropolitan area, so we're DC sports fans through and through. But it really was from an early age, falling in love with the game of baseball, getting to watch the tail end of Cal Ripken Jr.'s career. Growing up in the DC area, that was a really kind of special time uh, to grow up as a sports fan. And then it turned into me playing baseball, playing other sports, and really kind of part of my identity really when I was when I was a child and into my teenage years was wrapped up in being an athlete. We could talk about how things have evolved since then, but I've always felt like I've gotten so much out of sports, whether it be life lessons, whether it be just skills, relationships, stories. All kinds of great experiences have come from my love of sports, and it's carried into how I've decided to pick my career path and
Mhm.
and and, and do what I'm doing today.
I love it, man. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely same thing on my end. I do you remember ESPN News? I would literally just leave that on, and it was just highlights for 30 minutes, and then it would restart. And I remember just watching that repeatedly. Like just give me everything, and you'd see something new occasionally, but you'd pretty much just be sitting there for 2 hours, or I would just watching the same thing over and over again. And I loved every second of it. And I totally agree. The relationships, the people that you meet in this industry are, I mean, we all have a common thread. It's either competition or just the love of sports because, I mean, there is no other form of drama that I want to enjoy more than the last 2 minutes of really any sporting event, right? A basketball game, playoff hockey. If anyone out there hasn't watched playoff hockey, it's going to be coming up, in I guess like 6 months now, but there is no form of drama higher. Like I don't sweat more than sitting on my couch watching double overtime in playoff hockey. There's just nothing like it, man.
I mean, Michael, to give you a perfect example of this, I'm a Georgetown alum and I'm a huge Georgetown basketball fan. And last night I'm watching Georgetown play a close game with Creighton, who's a 25 ranked team in the country, and my heart was beating out of my chest. And I'm just sitting on my couch by
Hmm.
myself, but that emotional connection that I have with Georgetown basketball since I was a little kid going to watch Allen Iverson play at the Capitol Center. For those of you who don't know, that was where they played in Landover, Maryland before they moved to what's now Capital One Arena. But it is just amazing what, you know, the emotional kind of connection that you build with the teams and the players. And I see it as a big part of just enjoying life, right? Even in the
Hmm.
bad times, you know, even when your teams are losing, you know, you get to complain with your friends that your team is bad, right? I find even the bad parts about being a sports fan to be rewarding in some ways.
Exactly. It's there's nothing like it. That emotion, 100%. I don't feel it in anything else. The only things that most people could probably equate it to being religion and politics, two things I never really want to talk about. So if someone's interested in talking about sports, I'm more than willing to get angry at someone and start yelling. But no, it's there's nothing like it for me personally. And it's interesting how you bring up, so in DC, obviously, or in the DC area, as you said, you had Cal Ripken. What was it like when they introduced a brand new franchise to a city, to a state, you know, an area? Because it feels like, I mean, I've never been in that type of situation to kind of see something kind of arrive. Like, how were the emotions attached to the Nationals for you, knowing you're a baseball fan? Like, what was it like in the beginning? And then obviously with them winning the World Series recently, I'm sure some of those feelings have changed a little bit.
Sure, I think it has. And I mean, when the Nationals came to DC, I believe it was 2004. Don't fact check me on that, but I had already spent, you know, quite a bit of formative years falling in love with the Baltimore Orioles,
Hmm.
right? And you know, the Iron Man, he was an iconic figure. So you can imagine that I have a deep and emotional connection with the Orioles. And when the Nats came along, they weren't that great in terms of their product on the field for the first 6, 7, 8 years, right? So I didn't necessarily immediately jump the bandwagon. In fact, I'm still to this day a diehard Orioles fan, even in the midst of a rebuilding
Yeah.
phase. But the Nationals have also become a part of my life because when you live in DC, what's better than going to Nationals Park, having a few beers, having a bite to eat, hanging out with your friends, and just letting the game play out in front of you. I'm probably the biggest baseball fan in my friend group, but it's more about, again, gathering together, hanging out, shooting the shit, and just being together during the summer, right? So when the Nationals won this year, I would say, I'll admit, you know, hand to God, I jumped on the bandwagon and really got invested, right? I watched all of the playoff games. I even got to go to the World Series with my dad to two games at home in DC. And
Two of the ones
he's
they lost, right?
two of the ones I lost. Really, not that you know, the World Series is overrated
Yeah.
from that perspective. But no, I had an amazing time experiencing that run because just like with when the Washington Capitals won the Stanley Cup in 2018, the whole city seemed to be wrapped up in the story. And this Nationals team was so incredible because of the adversity they went through, right? They were
Hmm.
19-31 in May. People were calling for their manager to get fired. They had injuries, and then all of a sudden they caught fire, and they never stopped, even when they were down in the Dodgers series, even when they were down um,
The
in the
Brewers
World
should have
Series.
lost to the
Yeah,
Brewers, should have
they
lost to
shouldn't have
that.
been.
Like so many. Yeah.
They shouldn't have been there, and the fact that they won, and I mean, incidentally, we don't have to get into this, but now that we've seen what's happened with the
Yep.
Astros,
Hmm.
it's almost like it was justice. It was poetic justice that the Nats won. And I think, I mean, I actually wore a Nationals hat into the office today. So I'm definitely opening up some space in my heart for the Nats. And I think a World Series run will do that for you.
Absolutely. I mean, winning is always the best, right? That's the coolest feeling in the world. I can only imagine what it's like as a player, but being a fan of a team that wins, there is, I don't know, man. It's like the craziest high that you'll have for like 2 or 3 days, and it's incredible. And especially with the Orioles being AL, Nationals being NL. I mean, how often do they play a year? Once, twice, like at tops, like, you know. So there's something about it, and there's always that team. And I totally agree. I am a Mets fan, so openly not a Nationals fan. But after Bryce Harper left, I definitely hated them way less. So I didn't really care if they won, but then all the stuff about the Astros come out, and it's kind of like, all right, I don't really mind that they won. Poetic justice is a great way of putting it. So I think that that is great. So talking about emotion for sports, and then kind of flipping that and pivoting to the next part of the conversation, emotion around philanthropic causes or emotion around helping doing right and helping good, doing good and helping right, whatever we want to call it. Um, I know that's obviously that's a huge part of Third Win Group and what you're trying to do with connecting brands, sponsors, and causes together to make that win-win-win situation. So, how would you equate the emotion for a team or a player or a franchise to a cause or a charity or a nonprofit in kind of the same light?
Yeah, well, this is something that has a lot of layers to it, Michael. But I spent a lot of time last year studying consumer behavior, studying sponsorship marketing as a discipline, and really talking to people who have experience in this intersection of sponsorship marketing, social impact, and the sports entertainment industry. And a couple of things came to light for me. And number one is that conscious consumerism is the new normal, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can certainly attest to this, that I make buying decisions today, whether it be who I bank with, what groceries I buy, even how I decide to travel, right? I make decisions based on either the values of the companies that I'm working with or that I'm buying products from, or even like how they treat their employees, how they treat the environment. This idea of conscious consumerism is extremely prevalent, and particularly for younger generations, this is extremely important when young people are making buying decisions, and when they're deciding where to work, they really care about what the purpose of the brand or the company is. Do the values of that company align with my personal values, right? So as I saw that, I also saw this fact that sponsorship is a massive business, right? Or call it a marketing discipline. The projection for last year was about $70 billion was spent on sponsorship globally last year. And within that, cause marketing is kind of a small portion of it. But my studies have led me to believe that we're not going to necessarily separate out cause marketing and marketing within the sponsorship world. And in fact, we have the capability to better connect with this conscious consumer by integrating a cause or a social impact into sponsorship deals. And to give you a concrete example, this is a story that I lead off my book with, is how T-Mobile and Major League Baseball teamed up to provide hurricane relief in 2017 for Hurricanes Harvey and Maria that were devastating to the city of Houston and to the island of Puerto Rico. So T-Mobile is an official sponsor of Major League Baseball. They had been activating their sponsorship a couple of different ways, including the Home Run Derby. And you see a lot of advertising from T-Mobile right throughout baseball's postseason. But in 2017, they decided to, right as the postseason started, launch something called Home Runs for Hurricane Recovery. And they tied donations to an organization called Team Rubicon for hurricane relief to home runs during MLB postseason games. Then they also introduced a hashtag HR for HR, that anyone on Twitter could use the hashtag, and it would trigger an additional donation to Team Rubicon. So you had basically this collision of a great cause, the great game of Major League Baseball, and this brand who was funding it all. And they ended up getting, I believe it was about $2.8 million was raised through home runs that were hit and through all the activity on Twitter that was then distributed to Team Rubicon, which was providing on the ground hurricane relief in Houston and in Puerto Rico. All right. So long story short here is think about how much more powerful that story is than a traditional marketing or
Hmm.
advertising message, right? I remember tweeting hashtag HR for HR, watching the baseball postseason, and it felt pretty good that I was basically making T-Mobile make a $10 donation just because I was sending a tweet, right? So one of the big things I'm trying to do with the book that I just put out in December and with my business is to take this concept of a win-win-win partnership and start applying it all over the place. Certainly with a focus on sports entertainment, but again, trying to basically evangelize this idea that this is the mindset that you need to have in marketing, right? In 2020 and going forward in order to connect with conscious consumers.
I completely agree. First off, it's a great cause. Obviously, I do remember it was very difficult if you watched baseball at all to miss anything around that. Obviously, with sports and Twitter being very interlocked as well, it's very easy to kind of see what's going on at all times without even watching it. So I do remember consistently throughout, that time period, seeing a lot of HR for HR hashtags, a lot of, praise towards T-Mobile. And, one thing with sponsorship, a big portion of it is brand awareness, right? You attach your name to something because you want people to see it, but also associate you with something. And now I don't have statistics, but I believe that type of brand awareness, where there's an incredible cause behind it. It's a very relevant cause, and it's helping a lot of people. That brand awareness is going to resonate extremely more than just, as you were saying, the traditional. If they just sponsored the home run derby, we would have saw 1,000 T-Mobile commercials, and we probably would have been angry about it. Honestly, we probably would
Right.
have been like, this is way too much. But instead it was, this is incredible, I can't believe they're doing this, I love it. So I totally agree with you that that type of marketing, that type of sponsorship can go so much further. That the experiential side of it, from the actual being at the home run derby, but the experience that you just shared, saying, I was sitting on my couch, I sent a tweet, and I felt good about myself. That's an experience. You can give that to somebody. And as you said, all I did was tweet and I made T-Mobile give an extra $10. Like, that is an awesome opportunity that, when brands start to see that, they're going to want to do more of it, because I believe they'll make more money by being a good brand and doing what they're supposed to do, by then also giving away that money as well, right? So let's talk about your book a little bit more. I hand up, haven't totally finished it yet. It's an easy read. It's really great. The stories in it are awesome. Obviously the one about LA 84, that's a good one because I work with the Olympics and Olympic athletes. So that one was really interesting. I didn't know the whole history behind it. So with writing a book is a huge undertaking. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that your book's 500 pages long, but there's still a lot that goes into it. Where does where did the idea for writing the book, like, why was it, okay, I need to write a book and I need to do it right now?
Yeah, it's interesting, Michael. I felt like I was kind of living the book before I wrote the book. So let me explain and give you a little bit of context about that. So for the last 3+ years, I worked at a company called EverFi here in Washington, D.C. I haven't really left, still a D.C. guy through and through. So EverFi is a really cool education technology company. And essentially what they built is a online learning platform with a mission of teaching young people critical life skills. So the stuff that you and I wish that we had learned when we were going through school, like personal finance, health and wellness, entrepreneurship, all these different skills that really we feel like 21st century learners need. EverFi tries to fill that gap through an online learning platform. Now, the way that they scale that out is through sponsorship, right? And working with brands who can sponsor either on a national level or regional or a local level. The education can be sponsored by companies, and that way it can be offered for free to schools. So I spent 3 years at this company, and there's a sports and entertainment division at EverFi where we were doing these really large scale partnerships with the NHL, doing a STEM education program called Future Goals. We did a character education program with the NFL called Character Playbook. And we grew as I was there at EverFi, we started to grow our sports and entertainment practice, if you will. working with Major League Baseball and the Premier League and MLS. And then where I got to spend a lot of time was working with individual teams and professional athletes and then brands. So in many ways, I got to see this idea of sponsors working with teams or working with athletes on social impact programs, and EverFi kind of fulfilling the third win, right? Providing the education into the communities on behalf of organizations like the Brooklyn Nets and their jersey patch sponsor in four, right? EverFi fulfilled a STEM education program on behalf of those two entities. So I saw this happening, and then I had an opportunity to make a long story short, I had an opportunity to join a group of first-time authors and get some instruction on how do you go from an idea for a book to publishing a book. So this was end of 2018, beginning of 2019, that I decided to raise my hand and say, yes, I will take this concept of a three-win sponsorship or a three-win partnership and write about it. And I mean, it pretty much took me all of last year, but it was an amazing learning experience. And it gave me the opportunity to speak with people who are more experienced than I, to learn a lot, to go really in depth on this subject, and then to organize my thoughts, the process of taking a bunch of different ideas and then synthesizing that and trying to basically put together a useful resource for other people was an amazing learning experience. And I'm now feeling like I'm ready for the next project, not necessarily the next book, but I am doing some more writing. And that book process was just truly an amazing experience.
It's got to be finishing the loop on that. I mean, how many people on planet Earth do you think have said like, I want to write a book, and then they started and then kind of petered out? And being actually to able to finish it, obviously in a cohort with a bunch of others, kind of having that accountability, but also that inspiration and kind of uplifted nature is super helpful. But finishing it, publishing a book, you as the author, I don't know if that was a goal of yours for a very long time, but it's a cool thing to now walk around and just be like, yeah, oh, that's interesting. I published a book on this. Shameless plug here and there, and don't worry, everything's going to be in the show notes. You guys can buy John's book. I have bought it as well. It's fantastic, as I've said, but it's just such a cool thing to actually go and do, because I think so many people start and then they don't finish. Hand up, me included. I mean, I'm still like in the process of writing it, but I've been in the process of writing it for like, I don't know, like 8 months at this point. So hopefully one of these days I'll finish it. But I mean, I will finish it one of these days. There we go.
You
But
will.
yeah,
You
I
will.
will. I'm excited for it. It's cool concept. But I just love what you've done, and I'm sure it now gives you an extreme amount of credibility, right? But B, how much did you learn in just doing the research and doing all the necessary parts of writing a book? Like, how much did you learn in the process?
A ton, a ton, because look how much information we get spit at us every day,
Mm-hmm.
Michael. You just go on LinkedIn or go on Twitter, go on any of your social media feeds, and it's always the next crisis. And it's very easy to just go at the surface level of everything and not get into any depth. But this book process really forced me to spend lots of time and go in depth on the one topic. And I feel like I can now tell amazing stories. I have great case studies that I can pull from that I spent a lot of time researching and then organizing my thoughts about. And yes, I think the credibility was one thing that I was really going for, but it was also confidence in knowing that I can take a project from A to Z, get it done. And it only took about 10 months from like we're starting this until now we're publishing this book. And fortunately for me, I think the group that I worked with called Creator Institute provided both that accountability and the community around like, this is a really hard thing we're doing, but we're all 60 of us or how many of us are doing it together. Plus we got some instruction, right? And worked with this awesome professor named Eric Hester from Georgetown, who You can read about him. He did this book class with his undergraduates at Georgetown, which has turned into a bigger thing that I've now participated in. But I feel like the depth and spending lots of time on one subject is something that is overlooked or glossed over by a lot of people today. And I'm really glad that I have found this ability to go deeper, because that helps me stand out from kind of surface level thinkers, right? And now I feel like an advantage in any industry, we're talking about the sports industry, but business in general, is if you're able to go a level deeper, right, than your peers, that will be much more valuable to employers, to business partners, to potential customers. And I encourage everybody to, not necessarily go write a book, but spend some time going deeper on subjects that you care about. Read lots of books about it. Listen to lots of podcasts. Read the blog posts from the people that you admire, because depth is important in 2020 and going forward. You can't just, get the faucet, the hose of surface level information every single day and expect to go forward, and be successful in your career.
I completely agree. You are right, and I think it's part of internet culture. Just the quick nature of something. You know, the 24-hour news cycle now. It's just this happened. Okay, here's a headline. Okay, and if it's not a headline, you click in, and it's a paragraph article, which pretty much just said the headline in a sentence form or two. So I totally agree with you in understanding going a lot deeper, especially because you can you can tell when someone's just bullshitting, right? Like you can kind of just tell. Now, if someone walked up to you and started having a conversation, they could quickly understand that not only do you have like 6 case studies, 7, 10, 12 case studies, however many that you have to pull from, but you can talk in depth on them. You understand them, why it happened, how it happened, what exactly happened, and how you can almost equate what someone else is doing or what the brand or the cause or the property is thinking, and how you could potentially start that creative process. So you and I do something similar, obviously, as we've been talking about a little bit. You work with a lot of brands, you do a lot of sponsorship. There's the cause aspect, the cause marketing aspect of it, which in your newsletter you said it's just going to become marketing. So don't worry, all the links for the newsletter will be there as well. John just posted 2 awesome ones over the last week. I think the 20 things that'll happen in 2020. But I work with the Olympics, and my whole goal, well, not the Olympics themselves, but the NGPs and the athletes, and the same thing. Like I'm doing it because I want to help these athletes. So we're coming from a very similar place, and that's why I think when we connected originally, we definitely had some good conversation, and this is just another one that we get another feather in our cap when it comes to that. So with writing this book, all the content, obviously, you had to obtain that. You talked to however many people, as you said, you read books, listened to podcasts, read blogs, did everything. What is the actual publishing process like? I mean, because I want criticism because I know I need to get better. But when I get it, I'm never like super excited that I was criticized. You know what I mean? So I can only imagine what like the editing process is like and the publishing process is like. But I don't have to imagine anymore, John, because you can tell me.
Hey, Michael, I can't wait to answer that question. Can I hit pause for 1 second? Because I need to get a charger for
Yeah.
my laptop, and
Yeah.
I'll
Do you
be
think,
right
man?
back.
You're good.
Okay. didn't want to die. I didn't want my laptop to die on
Yeah,
you
this
in the
isn't
middle of
live,
giving
so
out
I
an
can
answer.
I can edit everything, so it's not a problem. So yeah, man, no worries at all. Do you need me to repeat the question? Because I don't remember exactly what I said, but it was about the publishing process, essentially.
Yeah, the question was about the publishing process, the criticism or editing, and all of that.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Just roll with
So,
it.
so that experience was actually great because I was able to publish a better book because of it, for
Of course,
one.
yeah.
But two, learning about, I would say the editing process just helps you understand that feedback is good, right? Even if it is saying essentially take this out, or this could be better, or here's how I try this differently. Being able to receive feedback is a great skill to have. And fortunately, I was set up with an editor at each stage of the writing process. So when I was just writing essentially what we call stories, I was writing essentially a bunch of blog posts at the very beginning of the process. I had someone also looking at my work and making suggestions and recommendations and saying, maybe think about getting more quotes here, or what if you tried this, or even kind of making grammatical um, updates as I went. And then as the process continued on, I had a different editor who was more looking at the structure of my book and making sure that everything kind of made sense.
Hmm.
It was going from, there was a beginning, middle, and end, and there was a rhyme and reason to the structure of the book. And then finally, we had a copy editor at the very end of the process who was just making sure that I don't look like a jackass and have, you know, commas in the wrong place and everything is grammatically sound and spelled correctly and all of that. So I guess the takeaway for me was, you know, be grateful for critical feedback like that, right? Because it will make you better. It'll make your work better. And learning how to receive feedback, but also learning how to give feedback is really a really important skill. One that I'm trying to work on. I've been doing Toastmasters outside of my whole business and my writing. I've been working on Toastmasters and my public speaking, but giving feedback is just as an important skill in that, in learning to watch one of your peers give a speech, but then give a 2 to 3 minute you know critical feedback. Like, that is an amazing skill to learn as well. you know kind of sidebar away from the book for a second, but I thought it was especially helpful to help me publish a better book, but also learn how to receive feedback constructively.
Receiving it constructively and then also being able to utilize it, right? Obviously, like anyone can receive feedback, doesn't mean you're good or bad at it, but then being able to actually utilize that feedback is obviously the most important part. And you clearly did that. I mean, the book got published. It's pretty darn good. I haven't checked on Amazon, but I saw you got a couple 5-star reviews already. I hope one of them's from me. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm waiting to finish the book so I can give a really nice critical feedback. Look at that. Look at that. Maybe that's what I'm doing. But I think it's great, and I think it's just so cool that you are a published author, that you were able to go through this whole process. How long did it take from, the, I guess, either the idea or signing up for the course or the cohort, whatever you're calling it?
Sure. We started right about this time last year.
Oh, wow.
And I joined this group with we call it creators, and we were mostly meeting online using Zoom to get instruction, and it took about, I would say, from mid-January last year until about end of June was the time period that it took to go from basically just ideas to our first draft manuscript. So I submitted my first draft manuscript, end of June. I then got approved for publication, and then from pretty much July 4th through end of September, maybe early October, was the process of going from a first draft to a final draft. And so it was a pretty accelerated pace. I
Yeah.
think the good news is that deadlines kind of force your hand and make sure that you get the work done. And that's probably what was a big benefit of being part of this group. Was I had to, if I wanted to publish on time, or at least the time that we set out at the beginning, I needed to hit my deadlines. So I felt like it was kind of a quick process, but it also proved that you can surprise yourself with how much work you can get done in a period of 10 months,
Yeah.
right? Because once I submitted my final manuscript, I had a published copy of the book in my hands right around Thanksgiving, or even, first week of December. So that was pretty awesome. And this year it's now about how can I take the lessons from that project and start applying them to my business, start applying them to the other projects that I'm working on, because so much of it is about execution. Michael, you and I, that's probably like the number one thing as entrepreneurs that we're thinking about is how can I ensure that I'm continuing to execute against my plan and not just kind of put things off. So
Ideas.
that's a whole nother,
Everybody's
that's a
got
whole nother
incredible
topic.
ideas. You can stop someone on the street, they have $1 million idea, but are they doing anything with it? And I think that's the most important part. And clearly you've shown that you're capable of, hey, I had this idea. You took action to make sure that you were going to get it done by signing up for this group and being a part of it. And yeah, 10 months to write a book, man, that's pretty incredible. I always thought that process was a little bit longer, but hey, if you surprise yourself, I guess that's the best person to surprise, right? And again, great book. Highly suggest everyone out there gets it. And the last part about the book, which I think is I'm really curious about, is how many times. So I did not ask you to come on here because of your book. I asked you to come on here because I think you're a cool dude doing some pretty cool things. The book is obviously just an extension of that. But what's this press junket like? I mean, you get this book, now you got to get it out there and let people know about it. How have you been doing that, and how do you see that process kind of going on for as long as possible until you're a best-selling author at that point, right?
Hey, I don't think being a best-selling author is necessarily, the number one thing that I'm looking to do here, but I am doing a few things to spread the word, right?
And
I've
first,
been
you
on,
you wouldn't you wouldn't be
yeah.
angry if you're a best-selling author, right?
Oh no,
Yeah,
not at
yeah,
all.
so
Everyone go buy the book by
yeah,
all means. Amazon.com 3-1 sponsorship. You will find it right there. But the process has been interesting of how can I leverage the different things that are available to me right now that don't take much resources, but will help me to spread the word and get the ideas and the message from the book out into the world. So yes, going on podcasts has been part of it. And I appreciate the opportunity to come chat with you, Michael, because that means I'll get to tell even more people about the ideas from the book and the different things that I learned. But the next step is I tried to think about who is it that would benefit from reading my book, right? It's not necessarily about me anymore. Is who would really benefit from reading the book, and trying to go find those people and literally one by one, hopefully they'll be kind of in groups a little bit so I can scale up my reach. But who are the people who can benefit? How do I go reach them, and how do I get the book into their hands? So the next phase for me is going to be reaching out to colleges and universities that have sports marketing programs, working with program directors who are in charge of curriculum, really helping to explain why this is an important book for their students to read. And then if possible, getting in front of students who are going to be our next generation of leaders in the sports industry, and helping to infuse this 3-win mindset into them. Because it's all well and good if I sell a bunch of copies and I become a bestseller, but to me it's more important that my message has more impact than just on my bottom line, that it actually makes a difference for other people in the industry and for just society in general. Because I feel like a 3-win mindset of creating partnerships that benefit people and benefit the planet is what we need right now. And I don't think there's any downside to taking on that mindset. So this marketing crusade that I'll be on for the next several months, I'm trying to think of it more as how can I help other people benefit from my ideas? How can I help, society benefit from my ideas? And what can I do to make the sports entertainment industry better? So that's what I'm thinking about everyone please go buy the book, but don't worry if if I won't give you the hard sell. I just think that it's a great way to learn about this mindset of profit and purpose in the sports entertainment industry going forward.
I think that there's a lot you can do with that too, right? As you said, going out to colleges and getting the books in their hands. I mean, again, it's not for, they're going to have to buy X amount of books because they have X amount of students, but that's not the point, clearly. If that was the point, you'd be doing a lot more media than hanging out with me right now, right? So I think, again, from the mindset, from your personal philosophy on sponsorship, but your personal philosophy on life as well. If you can, the more wins you can add up, the better it is for everybody. Like, yeah, obviously you're going to benefit slightly. I'll be honest, I think I bought the book for $1. So you're not going to become a billionaire. I mean, I hope you do, man. Again, hope you do. Best-selling author ever. It's a great book. But I mean, clearly there's a lot more that people can learn, students can learn, teachers can learn, just industry experts can learn from the time, the energy, the resources that you put into writing this book. Especially as you said, with in 2019, sponsorship being a $70 billion marketing discipline, and really no reason to think that number is going to go down. I mean, especially with 2020 being an Olympic year. I mean, however many billions of dollars are thrown at the Olympics every year. So there's so much that people can learn, and understanding and seeing and hearing and reading these stories on how, well, hey, it's not, and you do a great job in the book at explaining it too. It's not, oh, and by the way, why don't we attach this cause to it? It's having that Venn diagram of where do they meet in the middle, and from the start, acknowledging like, okay, here's this brand, here's this property, and here's this cause. They all can come together in some way, shape, or form. Let's figure it out. Not just here's a brand, here's a property. Oh, hey, it looks like we might have some extra dollars. Let's attach a cause to it at the end, right? It's more of that complete 3-win from the beginning, rather than kind of being like, oh, and by the way, this is kind of nice too.
Absolutely. And Michael, I'll open this up to you because you've worked with a lot of Olympic athletes, and you're starting to work a little bit more with the governing bodies. But would you say like the Olympics is doing a good job of this today, or is there kind of like room for improvement from your perspective
There's
to take on this new kind of approach?
there's always room for improvement, right? Like everybody can always improve, and it has been better for the 2020 games, and a lot of the things that I've been reading around that, where the causes, where the athletes, where a lot of things are involved, right from the press release, which is great, and that's exactly what we're looking to see, right? It's not just and oh, by the way. But I mean, I think, especially at the highest of high levels is where, it's going to be a trickle down. Like once the IOC starts doing much, much more, I know that they produce their numbers, and how much of the sponsorship actually goes to causes is great. Like, hey, let's do it. But I think that there is a huge opportunity, as you've been saying, to really start integrating a lot of these things right from the get-go. And rather than looking at the brand, I mean, the IOC, the USOPC, so we have the property. Rather than looking for brands, looking for a cause to attach to, and then finding brands that make sense, I think you'll make more money that way anyway, right? Like certain brands might specifically want to help a cause. They might not care about going into the Olympics because of X, Y, and Z, or the dollar price, or all these things. But there's so much you can do by attaching a cause to it that I think is fantastic. So one example with Airbnb is now an IOC partner. Now there's this huge amount of controversy around it, because with all of these cities, that means hotel developers and real estate developers, they have to make these hotels so people can stay. And Airbnb is now coming in, and I know Paris is, I think, the one that's most angry about it, 2024, just coming in and saying, hey, like, you don't need to have, thousands of hotels to be put up, and all these hotels to be put up and then pretty much not used really that much after it. Like, let's save the land and let people rent out their apartments to the, millions of tourists and travelers coming in, which is awesome from that perspective. Airbnb is also working directly with athletes so that they have experiential opportunities with all these athletes, and the athletes get paid for that, which is something that I like every deal I try and do, I try and make sure an athlete gets money because that's the reason why I do what I do. So of course there's more that can be done, but I do think that a lot of these things are starting to happen, which is awesome. And we're very, very grateful for it. And then just on a personal level, some of the NGBs that I'm working with and some of the sponsors we're talking to, I had multiple conversations in the last couple of days where it's just, hey, sponsor X, Y, and Z is going to, it's not, how do they say it? It doesn't have to be included, but it would help a lot if there was a philanthropic cause. So then that led me directly back to your book and understanding, like, let's look at all the causes that we're a part of currently and then see how we can not fit brands into it, but see what brands want to be a part of that as well. Because they're going to give us more money if we can have and then give that money to the cause, right? Overall. So we'll probably end up making more money. The experience is going to be a lot better for the brand, for the property, for the cause, and then all the people that are being marketed, right? Going back to the home runs for hurricane relief, it makes more sense to look at it from a 3-win situation.
Yeah, and Michael, I will kind of spoiler alert here because I laid out an idea in towards the end of the book of
Oh no, I haven't made it to the end yet though, John. Give me some time.
spoiler alert. Well, here it's a really topical thing because of we're talking about the Olympics. So in 2028, the Summer Olympics returns to LA, and doing my research on that, Casey Wasserman of the Wasserman Agency is the chair of the organizing committee for LA 2028, and they have this goal of raising $2.5 billion in for those games, which would be the biggest sponsorship for any one Olympic Games ever in the United States, maybe globally. I don't know exactly. So my idea was this, Michael: what if Casey Wasserman and his sponsorship people basically tried to tackle one of, he just assigned a sustainable development goal to each of his sponsorship professionals and said, okay, find a partner who we can help fulfill or contribute to this goal with, and then go find the sponsor who wants to buy into that. And then you can sign deals between now and 2028 and start activating against those partnerships. So it gives you that runway to sign deals and start activating against sustainable development goals for the next 8 years, which will help you get more revenue, help you reach that huge $2.5 billion number. But it also enables resources to flow into important causes that will contribute to the SDGs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where's the downside in that, right? Wouldn't Google, wouldn't Netflix, wouldn't Facebook be lining up to participate in something like that, to get that benefit of partnering with the Olympics, to partner with Olympic athletes, some iconic figures in our society and our culture, and to contribute to things like the sustainability and combating the climate crisis, things like ending poverty, things like ending hunger. The SDGs are all things that as society we're hoping to put a dent into these issues, right? I see no reason why we couldn't leverage something like the 2028 Olympics and the sponsorship revenue that comes from that to do some really innovative marketing partnerships. And again, Casey, if you're listening to this, you're probably not, but email me. I'll have plenty more ideas, and we can go down the list and figure out how to pull this thing off.
Yeah, it's a great idea. And I've read a lot of reports that 2.5 is they're being very conservative with that number. So I wouldn't be surprised if we reach 3.54, considering all factors involved. It's in LA, it's in the United States. 2028 is a long time away, and you're completely right. If someone can get on board with a project that's 8 years away, and you can start to impact now. I mean, the marketing around, hey, let's just start impacting now and then show you what we've done in these 8 years. That's half the campaign, right? Like, how much more do you need to show than, hey, between the IOC, USOPC, and this brand, in the last 8 years since we've signed on, we have seen X, Y, Z happen to this specific cause, right? Like, I think something like that. I mean, doesn't take a marketing genius to understand that people, again, as we talked about in the beginning, sports and causes are two of the most emotional um, feelings, I guess. I don't know, emotional aspects of most people's lives. So why not take advantage of that and really build out, as you said, that runway? And yeah, I mean, I can't see them, being unsuccessful in that, right? Like, let's say it's the 4 billion that they're looking for and 1.5 of it. They hit their 2.5 and 1.5 goes to somewhere, all these other causes along the way. I mean, it's a great idea. And yeah, I'll make sure that I email this to Casey. I'll have a timestamp so he knows exactly where to listen. Hopefully he listens to the whole thing, but it'll be a great idea and a great way to look at it. So I love it though, man. I can't wait to get to that part of the book. I'm not going to skip ahead because it's on my Kindle and it gets just too crazy trying to skip ahead. But I'll get there in a couple days, probably a couple weeks, and I'll enjoy the heck out of that. So I appreciate you giving me a little spoiler because I'm sure you go a little bit deeper in there in the book as well. So it should be fun to read. So I mean, we've spoken about you, we've spoken about the book. Let's actually talk about your company a little bit more. And I know you recently signed on with Substack as well, so I want to speak about that. With Third Wind Group, um, obviously, if it isn't apparent now, we're looking at the sports and entertainment industry, sponsorships, these properties, and the causes that you can affect with them, and not just affect, but really uplift and be a part of. When you started this company, what was your end goal or end game, or what did you want it to look like? Understanding, obviously it's going to take a few 10, 15, 20 years to finally get there.
Honestly, this is going to be kind of like pie in the sky, Michael. But
Perfect.
what I want to do, honestly, with TWG is to transform the way we do business in the sports center. I want to leverage the power of sports, the power of music and film, and all of these things that culturally are really important to people. And I want to leverage them as a force for good. And I feel like there is a lot of good happening already in the sports entertainment industry. Don't get me wrong. I think the charitable efforts across the leagues, the teams, so many musicians and artists and actors and actresses are doing great work. I think I think we would agree on that. I think there's bigger potential to unlock business ideas and business resources to make a difference on people and the planet. And it's not going to just be me, right, doing this. I want to build a firm with other people who are like-minded, who want to build partnerships, who want to get into impact investing, who want to do really creative, innovative, exciting stuff and try and move the industry forward towards something that's more sustainable, something that, you know, something that more people can benefit from just in their day-to-day lives, right? And to me, things like sponsorship and things like advertising, there's so many resources in them. But if we can't counteract things like the climate crisis and we can't address some of the big issues in society today, the music's going to stop for us, right? We won't continue to grow our businesses. We won't continue to, benefit and enjoy everything that we get from the sports entertainment industry. So I'm trying to, number one, kind of send a bit of a wake up call to my fellow sports entertainment industry professionals and say, look, this is what consumers are demanding today. And I have a few ideas on how we can change that, starting with marketing. But I want to be a part of this transformation of business, particularly leveraging sports and entertainment to to really build it into something that's doing good, that's providing a positive social impact for society, for the planet. And I think it's not worth kind of doing things the old-fashioned way in sports entertainment, because if we keep doing them that way, it's there's nothing that says like we can continue on this growth trajectory, right? Um, I am really passionate about this, and I'm just kind of in the very, very early stages of this, Michael. But I feel like I've seen where this is going, and unless we change the way we do business, I don't think we're going to be 10 years from now having this conversation and saying, oh, well, everything's going great, right? I think there's a lot of forces at play that suggest to me we have to adapt, we have to transform our business practices. Um, anyway, that's my TED talk for today.
I was gonna say a sweet monologue, man. I do like it, and I agree with you. And hopefully, Third Wind Group, or as you've referred to it, TWG, is in the same light as the IMGs, the Wassermans, the it's not Endeavor anymore, I don't think, but whatever it is, and really understanding that I mean that is a huge opportunity for you, but it's also a huge opportunity for all of these sports and entertainment brands, right? These sports and entertainment properties that they can start to change the world. They can start to change things that they care about in a really easy way, like a very easy way. It's just by adding something in the beginning rather than the end. You can get so much more out of it, and I totally agree. The only counter argument I'd make is, well, okay, you're talking to that 55-year-old guy who's been doing this for 30 years and said, well, it's still working like this. Why would I change?
Yeah, I talk about this in the book, and this is a mindset that I think it's about inertia, right? Everything's going up and to the right, and as far as profits go, growth, revenue, new stadiums, new leagues, new teams, more business and more tours for artists and musicians. I get it, and this is about business, right? We do need to provide value for our shareholders. That is one of the core tenets of business. However, I would just encourage anyone who's been in the industry for a long time to just look at what's happening around you in the world. Look at what happened last summer when the Business Roundtable and CEOs from JP Morgan Chase and Johnson Johnson, other big companies, released a new statement on the purpose of a business. And that is, it's bigger than profits. It's actually about providing life for all of our stakeholders. That means our employees, that means our shareholders, that means the community where our business operates, that means the planet. Business is bigger than just profits. And so if you believe that, if you kind of are on the same level with all of these business leaders that agree that business is about purpose, then let's talk about how we can get there. Right? I'm not saying we have to change everything about sponsorship. I'm not saying we have to change everything about the way we run our sports and entertainment businesses, but there are great ways to innovate today and in the next 10 years that will both help you grow your business and help you make a positive impact on society. Right? This isn't an either or; it's a both and. And I want to work with anybody who's in the sports entertainment industry who has that same mindset. So I'm not going to come in and say I know how to do things better than the 20 to 25-year veteran. In fact, they probably know a lot more about building sponsorship than I do. I'm just trying to bring some new and fresh and innovative ideas to the table, and I want to learn from other people who've been there to see how I can make my ideas and implement my ideas even better, if that makes sense.
Completely makes sense, and I love it, man. It's nice. Fresh, new ideas are always good. People hate change until it works, right? Like no one wants something to change, but then once you see it, because you always have a lot of people. I try and not, think this way, but when you finally see something work, you can say, okay, I'm not afraid of it anymore. Before that, it's very easy to say, well, what if it doesn't work, and what if the commissions don't go through, or if I don't hit my goals because some young guy right out of college came up with a pretty cool idea that makes sense on paper, but they don't know. So I totally agree, and I think hopefully you are the leader in that front, John. I think it'd be kind of cool.
Hey, you and me both, Michael. I'm excited about what you're working on, the mission that you're on, because Olympic athletes are some of the most just inspirational, powerful people in our society. And what you're doing to help them not only kind of maximize their revenue potential, but also just do more great work in the world, I think is awesome. And I feel like we're just kind of at the ground floor, man. We're just kind of just getting started, and we have a long road ahead of us. But it should be a lot of fun to be on this journey and do a lot of great work together.
I hope so, man. I mean, we're still in our 20s, right? I mean, just think about how many more years we have till we get to 50. So, yeah, I expect a lot of good things from the two of us. It should be a lot of fun. So, Do you want to speak about Substack a little bit? So you joined this company
Sure.
recently. Tell me about the company, why it was so attractive to you, and really what helped you kind of come into the mix and start helping their cause that they're working on.
Yeah, and I'll just clarify really quickly what Substack is. They're actually a software platform that I'm just leveraging. I'm not an employee. I'm just
Okay,
leveraging their software
apologize. Okay,
platform
cool, cool,
to
cool.
publish my written work. And I have this newsletter. I call it Win Win Win. I'm trying to stay on brand here, right? But I publish on Substack every Thursday. I'm trying to make it like one essay or thoughtful blog post per week, and I'm using Substack to get that message out there. So you can subscribe. I believe the website's thirdwin.substack.com to get my written work, which will come out every week on Thursdays. And really, what I'm using that for is it's just a great tool to kind of very easily publish work. And then you can also, um, if you like, invite your readers to subscribe and pay you directly for your written work, right? So right now, all of my work is free and accessible to anybody. Over time, I may very well turn on the option for people to subscribe and contribute whatever. We'll determine that down the line. But it's a really cool platform, mostly for independent writers, get their work out there, get paid for their work, and for an audience to be able to contribute to, you know, creators and authors that they like. So if you go there today, or when you hear this podcast, you'll see that I wrote about, in homage to 30 for 30, the great ESPN documentaries. I wrote 20 for the 20s, and these are basically 20 trends or ideas that I see making a huge impact on the sports entertainment industry during the decade of the 2020s. So we tease this out a little bit during the conversation, but I really try and give people a look into, all right, what should I be paying attention to? You know, what are some of the things that might might implicate my work, my career, what I'm doing inside the sports and entertainment industry. So, who else, I haven't quite decided what else I'm going to write about. I might write about Coldplay and them deciding to press pause on their tour for their new album because of climate crisis and like their concern that their tours provide a major carbon footprint. So I might write about that, and I might write about things like, Stephen Curry doing innovative sponsorship and endorsement deals that are basically taking my 3-win mindset and running with it. But it should be a great space to learn and grow, and I'm excited to be publishing, doing more writing, and getting more ideas out there that we can all hopefully benefit from.
It's awesome. As I said before, the last two that have come out, if I'm not mistaken, were the 20 for the 20s. You had some very cool ideas in there. Some stuff that, again, you when you see it or when you read it, you're like, well, yeah, duh, of course. But you didn't think about it beforehand because it wasn't ever put in front of you. So I think what you're doing is great. And I apologize for getting a little mixed up with exactly what the relationship is. But it sounds like it's a good one, and hopefully you make some money from it, or hopefully at least you can help change some minds and educate some people. So John, this was awesome. John Balkam, cool dude, great stuff. Send me over all your links, all your information. Everything's going to be in the show notes. So everyone, please go out and buy the book. It is absolutely fantastic. So appreciate your time today, man.
Thanks so much, Michael. This was a blast.